Good evening, everyone, and welcome. So good to see all of you. I'm Deborah Landau, Director of NYU's Creative Writing Program, and we are delighted to be hosting the National Book Awards Finalist Reading at NYU for the third consecutive year. It's a privilege to be able to help showcase and celebrate the vital importance of writers and books, and I'd like to thank the National Book Foundation for entrusting us with this honor. On a personal note, this is especially sweet, as NYU Creative Writing has been proud to see so many in our community receive National Book Awards over the years, including alumni Robin Koss-Lewis, Tess Gunty, Bruno Labata, and John Keane. Warmest thanks to everyone at Skirball for this gorgeous space. Immense gratitude to President Mills and Provost DePico for their generous support. Special thanks also to Ryan Pointer and Joanna Yaz for helping to make tonight possible. And to all of our friends at the National Book Foundation, thank you. Now, as ever, books feel essential. You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, James Baldwin famously wrote, but then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever been alive. It is this connection to one another through books that we are celebrating tonight. I'd like to extend my warmest congratulations to all the finalists on this extraordinary achievement. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Ruth Dickey, Executive Director of the National Book Foundation.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Good evening and welcome to the 2024 National Book Award Finalist Reading. We're thrilled that you're here with us. Huge heartfelt thanks to the many amazing people at the Office of the Provost, NYU Skirball, and the NYU Creative Writing Program, especially Deborah and Joanna Yaz, and our platinum sponsors, the Najafi Company and Penguin Random House, for making this evening possible. Thanks too to the wonderful staff and volunteers at the National Book Foundation. Thank you to tonight's ASL interpreters, Avery Gordon and Jose Gomez, and our photographer, Beowulf Sheehan. Really Useful Media, the amazing production team who is live streaming both tonight's program and tomorrow's National Book Awards ceremony for readers everywhere. This year marks a milestone anniversary. It is the 75th National Book Awards. From sorting through our archival boxes to our first ever summer reading adventure, we've been celebrating our anniversary across the year. And tonight marks the near culmination where we'll get to hear from and recognize the finalists for the 2024 National Book Awards before tomorrow's award ceremony. Thank you all so much for joining us in person and virtually on this special occasion. Please join me in giving these authors and translators a huge round of applause. Words and stories and books have never felt more precious or more at risk. It feels like a balm to be gathered together in a room of writers and readers and to celebrate the unstoppable power of literature. Tonight, we'll get to hear from the work of 31 authors and translators, including excerpts from the translated literature finalists read in both their original languages of Arabic, French, Mandarin Chinese, and Swedish, and their English translations. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the finalists who were unable to join us this evening. Rania Abdulrahman, co-translator of the Book Censors Library. Salman Rushdie, oh, yeah, we can reach to them, yeah. Salman Rushdie, author of Knife, Meditations After an Attempted Murder. Diane Seuss, author of Modern Poetry. And Samar Yazbak, author of Where the Wind Calls Home. We are so lucky to be joined by special guests Kiran Desai, who will be reading for Salman Rushdie, and Jeff Schatz, who will be reading for Diane Seuss. Each year, we are forever indebted to an extraordinary panel of National Book Awards judges. The 2024 judges read and deliberated on 1,917 book submissions and somehow found a way to narrow that list down to our 25 remarkable finalists in the categories of fiction, nonfiction, poetry, translated literature, and young people's literature. These finalists represent some of the most exceptional literature published today, and how lucky are we to be their readers. Tomorrow, we'll celebrate the 75th National Book Awards ceremony hosted by comedian and writer Kate McKinnon. So excited about that. And featuring musical guest John Batiste. We'll recognize our Lifetime Achievement honorees, Barbara Kingsolver and W. Paul Coates, and of course, the 2024 National Book Award winners will be announced live on stage. We hope that you will join us and tune in live on our website at nationalbook.org/awards. The National Book Awards fuels our year-round work at the National Book Foundation, which is to connect books with readers of all ages through our educational and public programming in all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. We partner with public libraries, colleges, cultural centers, educators, and book festivals, and distribute publisher-donated books to children and families living in public housing communities. Some of our teacher fellows and program partners from Massachusetts and Mississippi to Texas and Washington are even here with us in the room tonight. The work we do together begins and ends with the belief that books are for everyone. If you believe as much as we do in the connective power of literature, you can support our work by scanning the QR code on the back of your program or by visiting our website at nationalbook.org/give. I'd also encourage you to support the incredible authors and translators on stage by purchasing the 2024 National Book Award finalists. Huge thanks to McNally Jackson for joining us on site to sell all 25 titles. If you haven't already, please buy at least one copy of each book at intermission or following the program. And now I'll turn things over to our fantastic host for the evening, Brittany Luse. Brittany is an award-winning journalist, on-air host, and cultural critic. She is currently the host of It's Been a Minute, a podcast and nationally syndicated radio show from NPR. Previously, Luse hosted For Colored Nerds, The Nod, and Sampler podcasts, and co-hosted and executive produced The Nod with Brittany and Eric. She's written for Vulture and Harper's Bazaar and has read many of your books. We are tremendously lucky to have Brittany joining us tonight. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the program.
Oh my gosh, thank you for such a kind introduction and warm welcome. And also I should welcome all of you. Welcome to the 2024 National Book Awards Finalist Reading. I am Brittany Luse, and I am honored, beyond honored, to be your host for this evening. Thank you all so much for joining us. Tonight we are celebrating the authors and translators of 25 outstanding works in fiction, nonfiction, poetry, translated literature, and young people's literature. The finalist reading is a special evening where we'll have the pleasure of hearing from the finalists' honored works in their own voices, alongside the voices of a couple of special guests. We will hear from each of the finalists by category, starting with young people's literature and ending with fiction. There will be a brief 10-minute intermission after the translated literature finalists when book sales, thanks again to McNally Jackson, will be available in the lobby. For the translated literature category, the first reader will read a passage in the original language. Tonight, we'll hear texts in Arabic, French, Mandarin Chinese, and Swedish. The next reader will then read the same passage in English. Throughout the evening, I will introduce each reader by name in groups. Finalists, as I call your name, please stand by your seat and face the audience for a round of applause. Audience, make sure you clap, okay? It's not hard to do, though. And then audience, please, audience, please hold your applause. I didn't get this right. Audience, please hold your applause until the entire category is announced. So hold your applause, but y'all stand up and face the audience, okay? Then finalists, please approach the podium in alphabetical order. Friendly reminder for our audience to please put your cell phones on silent. Silent. Now, let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce the finalists for the 2024 National Book Award for Young People's Literature. All right, I'm gonna read all the names now. No applause. Violet Duncan, Josh Galarza, Erin Entrada Kelly, Shifa Saltaji Safadi, and Angela Shante. All right, Violet. Violet, would you please kick things off for us tonight?
Danse, Nitsigasung Gayaski Sigaswil. Violet Duncan, Buffalo Dreamer, A Dream of Finding Home. It had been 3 days of relentless wind and freezing temperatures. On the first day, I could hear them calling out for me from their dog sleds, but I had planned for this and secured myself with a rope high in a tree. They would never think to look there, I hoped. I couldn't bear to get caught. I would never go back to the isolation bin. I examined my travel sack. My big loaf of bread was gone, even though I planned to only eat half of it by now. But whenever I took a few bites, I couldn't stop. I tried to eat slowly. The food felt so good in my mouth, but my stomach wanted more. I needed to ration better if I was going to make it home. My apples were a little bruised, and I still had another small loaf of hard bread, some cheese, and a bag of peanuts left. The night sky was extra dark without stars as I made my way across the landscape. When I heard the thunderclouds rolling in, I prayed, "Not now, Thunderbird spirit, wait just a few more hours for your storm. Please hear me, my relatives. I need more time." I tightened my boots, pulled my hat down, and adjusted the wool blanket over my shoulders, continuing my night of travel. I tried to remember where I saw an old barn with a caved-in roof when I was taken years earlier. If I could make it there by morning, I might be able to find a place to hide there, and I'd be able to get a good sleep. Fortunately, I'd always been a good navigator. When we would go hunting in the winter, me, Dad, and Uncle used to follow the moose tracks for days before we'd find him. They would be so lost with which way we came that they needed me to bring them back home. Carries memory like the great Buffalo Nation, Dad would say. This one will always find her way home, my Buffalo Dreamer. I used to love hearing my name, Buffalo Dreamer. They changed it to Mary at the school. First, I was number 426. Then they said I was Mary. The wind started to pick up as the sun broke through the horizon. Just ahead, I could see the small barn with the falling roof that I had hoped to be finding. My legs were heavy and tired, and I ached all over, but seeing the barn re-energized me. When I made it to the barn, I found a pile of hay in the loft and collapsed onto it. Thunderbird ruffled outside and shook the roof above me. I smiled sleepily. Thank you, Hi Nanaskomin, Thunderbird spirit, for hiding my foot tracks. Hi.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be reading for you all. This is from chapter 4 of my novel. The awesome thing about getting in trouble every 5 minutes, Reed once explained, is it allows a guy plenty of chances to snoop through Dean Rickamora's office. Kids aren't supposed to be in there alone, of course, but once, last semester, Rickamora left Reed to contemplate his myriad faults while dealing with some irate parent who threatened to get physical with his secretary if Rickamora didn't get his worthless ass out here right now. The prize? A key card that gets us in wherever we want to go. Why would anyone want to get into school when he's not forced to be there? Reed and I have our reasons, the latest of which fills a duffel bag resting between us in the cab of his rusting Chevy. People care more about things when you shroud them in mystery, Reed says. He smooths his hair back and snugs his ski mask over his ears. He kills the engine, having just pulled into one of the parking spaces on 3rd Street, directly in front of the field at Tucson City High. This is how J.J. Abrams builds suspense for upcoming projects. We pull our ski masks over our faces, even though we're decked in black from head to toe, no purple or yellow to catch the eye. Donning my mask makes me feel like Kid Condor when he dons his fly suit, no longer just a punk-ass orphan from the wasteland Aerato system, but a motherfucking hero, motherfucker. Reed says, "This is how you get people to lose their shit on Reddit. Believe me, man, everyone knows Anonymous is face for a reason." Reed is explaining for the millionth time why I'm not supposed to put my name on my comic book series, even if we both know that the author of Kid Condor, Cadet First Class of the Constellation Corps, is the worst kept secret on campus. My social status has taken a hit since the release of my first edition. The general consensus seemed to mirror Robin Fletcher's response. The work was immature and lacking nuance. Was he high when he wrote this? I mean, cosmic Dorito dust? Yeah, and were those tater tots the bad guy shot out of his helmet? For the record, they were Bionetic pus pods. Even the dialogue, which I thought was clever, was mocked mercilessly by class clown Ben Rivers and his now famous nasally impression, complete with Coke bottle glasses and excited evil hand rubbing. "Adonis will reward me handsomely when I deliver Kid Condor to him in chains because I'm what? Intelligent, industrious, and indefatigable." But A.J. Mukherjee gave the work a C+ in his official review. He declared that one day my fans would look back on this early self-published artifact as a campy time capsule of immeasurable promise. He praised the work's allusions to pre-Columbian civilizations and called me a storyteller to watch. This is why I penned a sequel. This is why Reed and I are going covert comic booking tonight. Thank you all.
I'm also reading from chapter 4. At 3 o'clock, Michael and Gibby left the apartment to feed the stray cats. They weren't supposed to. Mosley had warned them dozens of times that the apartment manager, Mr. Shipman, who everyone called Ship, would read them the riot act if they ever got caught. But Michael couldn't stand the thought of the cats going hungry. Cats never go hungry, Mosley had said. They're survivors. But Michael would lie awake at night, imagining each and every one of them, perhaps some he'd never even seen, wandering the world alone. In his imagination, they were always sad, hungry, meowing into the darkness, waiting for someone to notice them. He couldn't sleep sometimes because of it. So they fed the cats. It wasn't a gourmet meal or anything, just cheap stuff in pull-tab tins from Dollar General. Better than nothing, though. They had a routine. Michael put fresh tins under the bushes in front of buildings N, M, and L and collected the empties in an extra plastic bag while Gibby tabbed along. They had moved on to building L when Michael decided to tell a small lie. "I might go out for sports this year," he said. Michael reached behind a bush, retrieved the can they'd set out last week, and tossed it into the bag. "Maybe football." "Football?" Gibby said. "Yeah." Michael wiped his hands on his jeans. He didn't like the look she was giving him, even though it was the same look he'd give himself if he was in her shoes. "Why?" he said. "You don't think I'd be good at football?" He pulled the lid off a can of Best Feast. "It's not that," Gibby said. "It just doesn't seem like your thing." A question immediately sprang to Michael's mind. "What do you think is my thing, then?" But he didn't ask. He wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Instead, he set the Best Feast in its spot and said, "It could be. My dad was an athlete, you know. Maybe he still is. He played basketball for Villanova." "Just because your dad is an athlete doesn't mean you have to be," Gibby said. She gathered her hair in a ponytail and secured it with a blue scrunchie. I know, Michael said. So why do you want to do it then? Gibby asked. Michael shrugged. A squirrel darted in their path. I don't know, he said, but he did know. If he played football, people might like him. Girls, even. Girls like Gibby. No one had ever liked him before. Not like that. Not like anything. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm reading from the beginning of the book. This book deals with the Muslim ban, and I know I could have probably chosen something more impactful later on, but if you were to ask Kareem what this book is about, it's about football, and I think a Syrian kid deserves to have a book where he just talks about his experience with football. Draft. The day football tryouts take place is the day my best friend moves away. My skill must have been boxed up, taped shut, and left on the moving truck with Adam. Because my throws fall instead of soar, my tongue tangles out bad plays, and I'm sacked to the turf before I can scramble. My possibility of playing quarterback tumbles out of reach, just like my football. Snorts and snickers surround me as I sit down on the bench. Jersey. I decide to wear my Bears jersey the day the roster posts. Number 34, sweetness. Because even if Walter Payton was running back, and I want to be QB, he was the best player ever, helping the Bears reach the highest victory, Super Bowl 20. Maybe if I look like I belong on the field, I'll get picked to join my middle school football team. In the Quran, it says, you're supposed to say, Insha'Allah, if you want something to happen. I say Insha'Allah 1,000 times before we get to school. Team. I run my finger down the roster, but my name's not there. A heavy sensation of disappointment weighs me down like defeat. Like the Bears almost every game they played preseason, I stink of loss. I stumble back from the list of players and get the urge to tear the jersey off my phony back. Even sweetness can't help me. Austin strides forward. He stops at the roster, barely giving it a glance before letting out a smug smile and sauntering down the school hall. He's surrounded by the cheers of friends, teammates, students, while I stand alone. Fall 2016, prepare to play. The day of the first school game, the team marches down the halls together, loud with laughter, matching jerseys filling their faces with triumph, applause around them as they prepare to play, while I flatten my body against the lockers, moving out of their way. All I can think is, if I was on the team, I wouldn't be invisible. Stadium. It seems like everyone in Chesterton comes to the first game. The silver and red colors of our Bulldogs streaked on hundreds of faces. Wide smiles, spirits high, arms waving. Loud voices in the stands chanting the school spirit song. The barely fall breeze of September flowing around us. It takes only one quarter for everyone to realize our team isn't going to win. Austin's tosses fall shorter. Coach's yells get louder. The number of fans in the stands gets smaller. I feel like I'm rewatching last Sunday's game, rewatching Jay Cutler get sacked 5 times, rewatching Bears fans leaving to avoid seeing a game end so low it crushes us to the ground. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Shantae, and I'm from New York. This book happens in New York, so earlier I tried this kind of call and response, but let's see. The kids did it well. Let's see if the adults know this. So I'm going to say a line. You tell you just naturally what comes next. Allow me to reintroduce myself. All right, not bad, not amazing, but not bad. It's the first poem in my book, The Unboxing of a Black Girl. Allow me to reintroduce myself. I was a meek girl, out of place in my neighborhood, too soft for the sharp edges that outline my world, and New York City will eat you whole. But I grew and learned from the women who, brown-faced like mine, were coming and going, leading and following, were healed and processing how to be girls and women at the same time, in a world hell-bent on shoving them, you, us into a box. The boxes we see predate us: boy, girl, binary thinking for a binary world. Ill-fitting boxes like this or that, manufactured boxes designed to protect, to control, to shield, binary boxes from a binary world. When we're young, these are the boxes that we see and we swallow because children are supposed to be seen and not heard. And so we fold and bend, shift and break to fit into them. Boxes wrapped in religion, in patriarchy, in capitalism, in hate. Boxes that help us survive a jagged-edged world. Inherited. We inherited these boxes from elders who ripened too soon like bruised, strange fruit swaying from poplar trees. But we inherited these gifts, these hands, these words, these curves from elders who ripened too soon like bruised, strange fruit swaying from poplar trees. And we inherited this moment, this style, this freedom, this movement from elders who ripen too soon, like bruised, strange fruit, swaying from poplar trees. High school. My mother, and most mothers on our block, knew that the zone schools were trash. Not out of trying, but simply because lack of funding and resources, a perpetual broken system designed to miseducate, undereducate, subjugate Black history, Black culture, Black contributions, and replace for American mythology. These mothers optioned for charter alternative spaces to cut the pipeline. They sent us away, unclipped wings, to neighborhoods beyond our borders. The Talk 13. When navigating outside of our community, we were taught, keep your head on a swivel, keep your eyes on one another, how to interact with cops and how not to, how to secure our backpacks and keep track of where we are, and if help was needed, we could find solace and safety in Black women. And I'm going to end with this poem called The Binary. As a queer author, it's just something that I feel like I want to have you guys sit with, as I'm the last young adult author here. So, The Binary. Today, lawmakers voted to take away another thing, to withdraw another comfort, to stop progress to queer rights, human rights, your rights, our rights, fuck, all the rights. They've perfected ways to get us to hate one another, live and lie, pit brother against sister, silent cries. Tomorrow, you'll cast a vote. White or Black, North or South, him or her, right or wrong. Boxes to protect, to control, to shield. Binary boxes for a binary world. A jagged, edged world, deep, deep down in the fabric of our nation.
Oh, that was fantastic. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the finalists for the 2024 National Book Award for Translated Literature. Bouthena Al-Essa and Savad Hussein. The book, The Censor's Library, was co-translated by Rania Abdurrahman, who sadly was unable to join us tonight. Linnea Axelsson and Saskia Vogel. Fiston Mwanza Muzila and Roland Glasser. Yang Shuangxi and Lin King. Samar Yazbek and Larry Price. All right, welcome, Bouthena and Savad.
Hello, everyone. I'm gonna read in Arabic, so I invite you all to enjoy the music. إن هذا هو أسوأ ما يمكن أن تؤول إليه الأمور فعلاً، وهو لا يستطيع أن يتخيل لنفسه ظرفاً أسوأ. رغم أن التخيل ممنوع، لم يستطع منع نفسه من تخيل ابنته تذرع ممرات الهيئة مثل شخصية هاربة من كتاب مصور. إنها مزيج من كل شخصية متخيلة ممكنة، وهو لم يفهم قط من أين لها أن تعرف كل تلك الحكايات، حكايات لم يقصها عليها، لا يتذكرها تماماً، ولكنه يألفها على نحو غامض. ثم توصل إلى أن التفسير المنطقي الوحيد للأمر هو أنها قامت بتأليفها بنفسها، وأنها هي التي قصت عليه تلك القصص. الصبي الذي يطير، غبار الجنيات، الحذاء السحري، والساحرة الشريرة، التفاحة المسمومة أيضاً. بدت الصغيرة مثل بيت مسكون بالأرواح، البوابة الأخيرة المشرعة على الماضي، وتساءل إن كانت بلاد العجائب أو أيا كان المكان الذي تأتي منه الحكايات قد جند طفلته لمآرب انقلابية، وأنه يستخدمها للعودة إلى الواقع مثل مجاز. ربما كانت الطفلة مصنوعة من تلك المادة السوداء التي تملأ الفضاء، تلك التي جننت البشرية بفكرة السفر عبر الزمن. لا يمكننا السفر عبر الزمن إلا من خلال القصص. لقد أصبح يعرف ذلك الآن، لكنه لا يريد لطفلته أن تكون شهيدة المخيلة. Thank you. شكراً.
Hi everyone, I'm Savad Hussain, and I'm reading this on behalf of myself and my co-translator Rania Abdurrahman, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. He couldn't imagine a worse situation, even though it was forbidden to do so at all, and he couldn't stop himself from imagining his daughter wandering the corridors of the censorship authority like a picture book character on the loose. She knew so many stories. He'd never understood how, and she somehow managed to embody each of their protagonists. They were stories he hadn't told her, stories he didn't quite remember, and yet he found them strangely familiar. He had decided that the only logical explanation was that she'd thought up the stories herself. Tales of fairy dust, and the boy who could fly, the wicked witch and the magic shoes, and the poisoned apple too. She was like a house possessed by spirits, the final doorway to the past. Had Wonderland, or wherever it was that stories came from, recruited his daughter for some kind of plot to overthrow the government? Was it trying to use her to come back to the real world, like a metaphor or a conduit for meaning? Perhaps the child was made of the dark matter that fills the universe, no different from a black hole that allows elements to travel through space, time and space, confounding humanity to no end. But people can only travel through time in stories. He knew this, but his daughter didn't. He didn't want her to burn on the pyre of imagination. Ooh.
Thank you. Yeah, hello everyone. So this is the short Swedish bit. Dörren öppnas igen och det kommer in en kusin till Bibi som sätter sig vid bordet. De pratar en så vacker samiska. Det är samma dialekt som vi hade hemma på vår backe. Språket som fortfarande fanns när vi började skolan, Jonne och jag. Är jag då så dum att jag inte klarar att hålla mitt eget språk levande? Jag bara lät det försvinna, fördrivas från mina barn, så att Sandra nu låter som en bok, helt utan dialekt, när hon i vuxen ålder försöker lära sig samiska med sina barn. Inte ett ljud får jag fram alla de gånger hon säger svara mig på samiska, mamma. Och jag vill berätta allting för den där unga mannen som sitter vid bordet intill Bibi med sin kaffekopp och kanelbulle. Men jag kan bara le och han ler tillbaka, nickar menande och höjer koppen. Vet han om att jag sitter och lyssnar på hans språk? Mellan orden som bara är ljud för mig och som jag inte förstår anar jag något han lämnat, något han har förlorat och som han inte vill mista. Kommer han också att få ett barn här någon gång? Vilket språk ska hans barnbarn få prata? Vilka fåglar och träd kommer de att lära sig namnen på? Och vad ska de sjunga för sånger? Om solen och vinden, kriget och männen, fattig och rik. Thank you. Ologisto.
Hi, my name is Saskia Vogel. I'm reading the English of Edna, and this is from a chapter called The Language Cafe. The door opens, and in comes a cousin of Bibi's who takes a seat at the table. They speak such a lovely Sami. It's the same dialect that we spoke back home on our hill, the language that still existed when we started school, Jonna and I. Am I that dumb that I can't manage to keep my own language alive? I just let it slip away, be driven from my children. So now Sandra sounds like a book, no dialect at all, trying as a grown woman to learn Sami with her children. I can't get a sound out those many times she says, "Answer me in Sami, Mama." And I want to share this with that young man sitting at the table next to Bibi, with his coffee cup and cinnamon bun. But all I can do is smile, and he smiles back, nods knowingly, raises his cup. Does he know that I'm sitting here listening to his language, between the words that are no more than sounds to me, and which I do not understand? I can sense something he has left behind, has lost, and that he does not want to do without. Will he also have a child here at some point? Which language will his grandchildren speak? Which birds and trees will they learn the names of? And which songs will they sing? About sun and wind, war and men, rich and poor. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'll read in French. La rue, la rue nous appartenait. Elle était dans notre escarcelle. Elle était notre propriété privée, notre chose, notre marchandise. Nous la remplissions de nos rêves, de rêves décarcassés, de rêves privés de mazout, de rêves sans tête ni colonne vertébrale. La nuit, l'alcool et la colle nous donnaient des ailes, nous transportaient au-delà de fleuves et de mers, et nous atterrissions par le plus grand hasard dans de mégalopoles inconnus. Le Caire, Kinshasa, New York, en compagnie de nos épouses et même de nos époux, bras dessus, bras dessous, affublés de nos manteaux de fourrure, de blousons en cuir et de pulls en cachemire, coulant à verse de bouteilles de champagne, heureux comme 10, puisque nous y sommes. J'ai dit ceci. Nous ne nous accaparions pas illégalement de breloques d'autrui. Nous ne nous servions à la source comme de bons colons. De la malversation, absolument pas. Comment aurions-nous pu tordre le cou à la faim si nous ne nous servions pas à la source. D'ailleurs, les mêmes gens qui se plaignaient de nos rapines, dans l'heure qui suivait, regrettaient, versaient de larmes de crocodile, secouaient la trogne quand ils tombaient sur le cadavre d'un mioche dans les rues alphatées du centre-ville. À bien y penser, nous n'appartenons plus au Katanga et n'étions ni de loin ni de près concernés par l'union minière et ses débiles ajustements structurels.
The street was ours. It was in our pocket, our private property, our thing, our merchandise. And we filled it with our dreams, gutted dreams, dreams from those nights without fuel oil, dreams lacking heads or backbones. At night, alcohol and glue gave us wings, carried us over rivers and seas, and we landed in uncharted megacities, Cairo, Kinshasa, New York. Seemingly by chance, in the company of our wives and husbands, arm in arm, done up in our fur coats, leather blouson jackets, and cashmere sweaters, pouring one bottle of champagne after another in 10th heaven. Yet I must say this. We made no illegal seizures of other people's trinkets. We simply helped ourselves at the source, like good colonialists. Misappropriation? Definitely not. How could we have laid hunger to rest if we didn't help ourselves at the source? And in fact, the same people who complained of our plundering lamented, not an hour later, weeping crocodile tears and shaking their head when they came across the body of a young'un on the asphalt streets of downtown. Thinking about it, we were no longer Katangese, nor were we affected, directly or indirectly, by the Union Minière and its imbecilic structural adjustments. We were one-night princes, kings, marquises, honed by the glue that gave us ideas, the glue that furnished inspiration, the glue that quickened dreams, and always the glue that allowed us to hold our own in those nights infested with finance inspectors, solipsistic soldiers, vendors of genital parts, and assorted seekers of blood for sacrificial ends.
大家好，大家好。食堂的玻璃窗有冬天的日光穿透，满是生辉，照映小千浑身一圈金边。那就像是这个世间天上天下走来我面前的人们，唯有小千闪闪发光。所以说我才会无法忍受，身在本岛的小千不就是屈就吗？跟那种男人结婚，到底可以做什么呢？翻译家的工作，如果在本岛无法进行，我们就到内地去，这样不就好了吗？请你等一等。小千打断我，但我没有停止。困在鸟笼里的鸟雀，理应去到更开阔的地方飞翔。何况，小千不是燕雀，而是鸿鹄，不是吗？如果欠缺东风，那么我想成为小千的东风。我说了，请你等一等。可是，如果说我不想乘上那一阵东风呢？小千语气坚决，我反而错愕。为什么不想呢？我说过了吧，
小千不必依靠王家，也可以去内地生活的。因为我虽然是个赚不了多少钱的小说家，但未来会是长崎青山家的下一任主人。这明明就是我所能想到的，对小千最好的安排。够了，青山小姐。Thank you.
Hi. I will give a little bit of context because this scene takes place a little later in the book, about 2/3 of the way through. So this story is set in 1938, a time when Taiwan was governed by the Japanese Empire. The two main characters for whom this scene takes place are Aoyama-san, who is a young woman Japanese writer visiting Taiwan, and Chi-chang, who is her Taiwanese local interpreter. The winter daylight filtered through the cafeteria's glass windows shone a halo around Chi-chang's body. Just like how, in this world, in all of heaven and on all of earth, Chi-chang was the only person who glowed in my eyes. That's why I can't bear that you have to settle for a lesser life here on the island. What can you do after marrying a man like that? If you can't work as a translator on the island, then why don't we go to the mainland? Stop, please. I didn't stop. It makes sense for a caged bird to seek more open lands. Besides, Chi-chang, you're no sparrow. You're a white phoenix. Isn't that right? If what you're missing is a rising wind to lift your wings, then let me be your easterly wind. I said, please stop. What if I don't want to ride that easterly wind? Her tone was firm. I was dumbfounded. But why not? I've said it before. You don't have to rely on the old family to move to the mainland. I might not earn all that much as a novelist, but I am heir to the Nagasaki branch of the Aoyama family. This is the best possible arrangement for you that I can... Enough, Aoyama-san, she said. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Samar Yazbek, who is the author, who I translated, was unfortunately prevented from being here today, so I'm afraid you only have me to read to you. And this rather optimistically sized Arabic font, so please bear with me. This takes place from slightly later in the book. The protagonist, Ali, has been press-ganged into being a soldier. But in this passage, he's reflecting on his other life, his real life. في عزاله كان يراقب ولساعات عالما سحريا من علاب الألوان شموس صغيرة وكبيرة ومتوسطة تتمايل تظهر وتختفي تنط تعلو وتهبط وتختلف في كل ساعة من حركة الضوء. الشمس والقمر يتناوبان في العالي حيث يتقشر الضوء والظلام وكل منهما بين غصان الشجرة وفي عينيه تلوح مثل تفاحة. كان يمد يده عندما يتدفق خيوط ناعمة ودقيقة من ألوان البرتقالية والوردية ويمسكها فتحمله بمظلة طائرة وتنثر من حولها دوائر نارية. في نهار تبدو هذه الدوائر ذهبية وفي الليل تتحول إلى فضية وما بينهما تتفجر حركة الألوان حتى يشعر أن جلده تتلون معها الأحمر والأصفر والأخضر وتنويعاتها اللانهائية. هناك خضرة تتفاوت
روعتها واختلافها بدرجات دقيقة حتى تشكل عشرات الألوان من درجات الأخضر القاتم التي تنتهي بالأسود في مرحلة ما، وفي مرحلة أخرى تكون زرقاء تتشكل حوله كالدائرة، وذلك الدوران من الضوء سرعا ما يتحول إلى أزرق فاتح ثم يعود أخضر. في الليل يتحول إلى اللون كحلي وأزرق ينتهي بالنفسجي الخالص، وهو يمرر أصابعه بين ورقات المرتعشة ويدعبها في الشتاء بينما يغطي الثلوج الجبال ويغطي معها ابتسامات المزارعين وجلودهم يابسة. كان لا يصدق ما يسمع عن اللون الأبيض للثلج، لأن الأوراق وهي تنفض عنها الذرات الثقيلة للثلج تجعله يرى العالم شفافاً حيث يختفي الألوان. In his arzal, he would spend hours watching a magical world of color games. Suns large, small, and all sizes in between would waver, appear, disappear, leaping high and tumbling down, different at each hour of the light's movement. The sun and moon alternated in the heavens, where light and darkness peeled away, and each of them bobbed and waved among the tree branches like apples. He would reach out his hand when the soft, delicate lines of orange and pink gushed forth, and he would grasp them, and they would pick him up in a parachute and scatter circles of light all around him. During the day, these circles looked golden, and at night they turned silver. And in between, the motion of colors erupted until he felt his skin coloring too. Red, yellow, green, and all their infinite varieties. There was a green whose resplendence altered so minutely that it formed dozens of shades of dark green that eventually ended up black. And a little later, blue formed in a circle around him. Those circles of light soon turned pale blue, then back to green, and at night they turned inky into a blue that ended up pure violet as he drew his fingers through the quivering leaves, stroking them. In winter, when snow hid the mountains along with the smiles and chapped skin of the farm laborers, he found it difficult to believe everything he'd heard about snow being white. Because the leaves, as they disintegrated into the heavy snowflakes, made him see the world as transparent, a place from which all color had disappeared. Thank you.
Thank you all so much again. That was fantastic. All right, now it is time for a brief 10-minute intermission. Please make sure to purchase multiple copies of each finalist's book and return to your seats promptly so we can begin on time. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited to continue hearing from tonight's readers. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce the finalists for the 2024 National Book Award for Poetry. Wow, turning up for poetry. I love to hear it. I love to see it. All right, the finalists are Ann Carson. Well, hold on now. Y'all already forgot the rules from the first half of the program. You're supposed to hold your applause. But shout out Ann Carson. Fatty Judah. Y'all really supposed to stop. But I understand the feeling behind it. M.S. Red Cherries. Jeff Schott. I'm not wielding enough authority in this room, because what are y'all doing? Jeff Schatz, who will be reading for finalist Diane Seuss, who was sadly unable to join us this evening, and Lena Helef Tufaha. how robust and good it feels when you wait, okay? Good things come to those who wait. Please help me welcome to the podium Ann Carson.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I want to read one poem. It's in the form of a sestina, and got an echo on the mic, I'm sorry. As you may know, a sestina is a form in which there are 6 stanzas of 6 lines each, but the final words of the lines of the first stanza have to be repeated in all the other stanzas in a changing order. So it's kind of complicated. I mean, fun, but you know. And this one is about an ancient Greek lyric poet named Hipponax, who was noteworthy because he wrote poetry about the lower classes, people impoverished, homeless, helpless, hopeless. Other Greek poets wrote about kings and queens and shiny surfaces. So he was different in that regard, and he also mentions the scapegoat ritual, which you may know something about. It's a metaphor to us, but to the ancient civilization, it was all too real an institution. Poverty remix, a sestina. Poverty is a scapegoat. We drive them out. Hermes, I shiver like crazy. Give Hipponax a cloak. Don't look it in the eyes. We forbid you asking in God's name for bread. We distinguish relative, some teeth, from absolute, no teeth, poverty, by means of an algorithm. Hipponax invented a poetic meter called limping iambic, deliberately ugly in rhythm. Longing and violence built up over a lifetime, unloaded on the scapegoat. Did you think the Black Death, with its depopulation of Europe by 1/3, would bring an abundance of bread? Instead, everything ran out. Stinginess blazed from all eyes. Never mind morals, no one had a fig or a cloak. Beware the ruses and swindles of the poor, many of whom already have a cloak. You say, is poverty so different? We want things, they want things, similar rhythm. Note, shame lives upon the lids of the eyes. First we wash you in the angel's tenderness, dear little filthy farting goat. Then, out. Well, yes, we keep all the bread. We forbid you using the God card casually for bread. We forbid you touching our cloak. No gloves, here's $1. No hands, out. And this Hipponax, who was he, with his scatological girls and his cockshaker rhythm? Buffoon, imposter, caricaturist, scapegoat. Hunger came parching out of his eyes. We have a little game. Take turns looking in the eyes of that filthy farting one with his filthy farting bread, who, we are sure, has volunteered to go forth as scapegoat, from the folds of our sacred civic cloak and the beat of our reddish foam rhythm. Count 4 when you breathe in and 6 when you breathe out. Tell me, is drive them out the same as have stones for eyes? Sung in a shame-resistant, extra-grammatical, grand, nasty, mother fig fucker flogged rhythm that soaks the bread in blood and rips the cloak off the scapegoat. Why does poverty exist? Because stinginess does. In its macroeconomic law of demand and demand, cloak, In its ritual pharmacos, we beat them with branches. Cloak. In its they might be faking it, pity and barley cakes. Cloak. In its war against idleness, we're all debts owed to death. Cloak. In its enough if they do not die of hunger or cold. Martin Luther. Cloak. Give Hipponax a cloak. Give Hipponax a cloak. Give Hipponax a cloak. Thank you.
Decided to read a new piece. If you don't like it, the book is better. If you like it, the book is better. Is this the banality of evil reconvened? Are you Gen G? Did you vote to make it great again? Or was genocide never genocide to you? Is there a light inside you dying to go out? Who will you mine to keep your night bright? How are you always unprecedented, even as echo? Am I a Palestinian, ever not an analogy whose progenitor you are? How heroic is your common decency? Why are you so often the baby and I'm the bathwater? Will you judge me if I reply, Allahu Akbar? And when you forever hold my peace, do you say, Salaam alaikum? And if I say, free, free, will you fill in the blank from the river to the sea? What do you remember of Iraqi memory? What if Palestinians love their freedom more than you love their unfreedom? Did you know this about the way you love? Did you convert my ashes to your gold dust? Horror beyond the reach of psychology. Have you heard this expression before? Are you in solitude with market or in solidarity with spectacle? Which part of you isn't a human shield? Whose body parts are mine? Do you understand that I am a national liberation movement? Can we hear it for tiny Lebanon, fighting off the mother of all crimes as the laws that made you king said one should? Have you been to Yemen or just bombed it? How full of emissions are you about your emissions? When did you first export your wisdom to those you destroy? Do you really think I'll forgive you without you asking for forgiveness first? Why should you wait until asking is synonymous with your defeat? Wasn't tragedy always there before you sequenced it? Is your methylated double helix an individual or a corporation? For example, when I say horror beyond the reach of genetics, will you give me or yourself a standing ovation? Does Gaza come to mind? Wouldn't you agree that Palestine today is the empire of the human heart? Have you thanked me, or are you worried I'll charge you interest? What about Sudan, Congo? What have you done to the earth? When were you in love last? Was it any good? What have you done to the remainder of my life? Has it occurred to you that you are a childhood robber? Do you remember that game? Was it ever a game?
Little hat trick. That was for my mother. Riding the Highway 212. Mother, I am picking up speed and the ice is getting thicker. I am on my way to see you. I am coming to see you. I haven't been home in a couple years, but I'm driving the miles back home. The reservation always feels extraterrestrial, like the International Space Station, a condensed bubble of sky, clouds, sun, and moon, always surprised they are the same ones that rise above you. I look at the bare map on the bare road, which makes a two-dimensional map seem even flatter, and past the familiar road signs. I see the Catholic Church, the nicest building in town, and I see the river. I'm looking at the river and remembering a story you told me about my sister. You said she once got so drunk during a party, she fell into the river and forgot how to swim, and then someone pulled her out. My brother says it was you, but you said it was him. My sister doesn't remember, but she cried when she made it onto land. I also remember you telling me that the river was poisoned by the neighboring coal mines. You said that the fish in the river were sick, and so was the river. I remember meeting a cousin for the first time one summer when I visited home from college, who told me about the center of the universe. He was so happy to have finally met me because I was your daughter. He thought the world of you, so he thought the same of me. He called himself a river rat, and the next summer he drowned. It is hard to think that a river that has fed and kept us alive has also taken so much from us, poison in the shadow of coal mountains. I pull into your yard and I knock on your door. You answer and tell me to sit down. You have been sick for a little bit of a long time, and I know that. Now your sickness is so loud, it asks if I ever thought of where I want to be buried, and I say yes, wherever you are.
I'm really sorry the great Diane Seuss can't be with us tonight. I'm Jeff Schatz, and one of the great honors of my life is serving as Diane's editor at Grey Wolf Press. Here is her poem, Juke. Juke. What kind of juke do you prefer? For me, it's the kind with 3 songs and 37 blank title strips. 3 songs and 2 are Luckenbach, Texas. The third is beautiful and arcane, but the patrons hate it, and the record skips. I prefer the 3-song juke and the 3-toothed human smile. I found the juke of my dreams in a bar called Chums. No clue the origin or meaning of the quotation marks. It was a prime number of a bar, and now it's dead. One night, drinking half and halves, half beer, half tomato juice with schnapps chasers, a cheap source of hallucination. A soon-to-be defrocked Catholic priest, Vic Jr., my mother, and me, our faces streaked blue with pool chalk, juke red as a beating heart, and just a strip of hollyhocks and a tree line between us and the northern lights. I was young. I looked like a Rubens painting of a woman half eaten by moths. What lucky debauchery. The ride back on a washboard dirt road, taking everything for granted, flipping off the aurora borealis like it was some three-toothed human in flashy clothes dancing to get my attention. I wasn't a mean drunk then, just honest. Next morning, Mom walked in on the naked priest in the shack's garage, washing himself with a rag and cold water from the well in a metal dishpan. I'd later do dishes in that pan and wash my hair in that pan. We popped popcorn on the one-burner wood-burning stove and ate it out of that pan. I'm talking about a time and a place. All I can say of it is that it was real. The song choices were limited, so the grooves were dug deep.
Good evening, NYU. Good morning, Palestine. This first poem could have been written this year, but it was in fact written in 2018 for the people of Gaza who all marched for return. On the 30th Friday, we consider plurals. At the border, a flock of journalists, a sacrifice of tires burned behind us. Beneath the picnic tents, a funeral of families. What else will we become in Gaza if we gather, if we carry our voices to the razored edge? We were met by a gallop of prayers, clamoring recitatives, puncturing the shroud of humid air. We were met by a delirium of greetings. Peace be upon us, surreal between embraces, the horizon locked and loaded. What is upon us will require mercy. Let the plural be a return of us, a carnage of blessings, bodies freed from broken promises, from the encumbrances of waiting. Letter to June Jordan in September. I cannot pass the anniversary of that first news event of childhood without returning to your poem. How from my house I watched, and watched my grief-stricken parents unable to speak. How I leaned into the screen, the chords of the cries, searching for what was recognizable of fingers and thighs, of bracelets and mustaches. Macabre arrangement of bodies with names like our own. I cannot pass without your words. Something about witnessing twice removed, about distances magnified by the shift into language, of dailiness and my own children's vernacular and the machine grinding us all in its jaws. I met a girl from the camp at a reading in Beirut. She asked if we could talk about the life of poetry. Our families are hauled off to the world of the dead, and every day it is on screen. In Gaza, we're watching Ferguson, and in Atlanta, we're watching Jerusalem, watching Minneapolis, watching. Their weapons and their training programs, indistinguishable. The word almost flickers for a nanosecond. Here I note the shelf life of self-censorship, legacy of our era. Some days, poems are scrawled on pieces of cardboard and carried on our shoulders at the protest, like martyrs. Here, I should say something about hope. Here, I should say something about living. Thank you.
Thank you all so much again. Again, thank you. All right, and now it's my pleasure to introduce the finalists for the 2024 National Book Award for Nonfiction. Jason DeLeon, Eliza Griswold, Kate Mann, Kiran Desai, Kiran Desai, who will be reading for finalists, Salman Rushdie, who could not be here this evening, and Deborah Jackson Taffa. Oh. Jason, you are up first.
This is a conversation that I have with a banged up 19-year-old kid from Honduras who occasionally makes money moving people across the length of Mexico, who on the train tracks goes by the name Chino. He says to me, I have to leave Pacalna because they are waiting for me to put my guard down. When night falls, they will try something. But maybe I'll go after them first. Maybe I'll start killing the people who are coming after me. I'll show them who the bigger man is, he tells me. And then he shakes his head. But the truth is, I can't do that. I don't have it in me to do those things. Right now, it feels like God is testing me to see if I have a good heart. It's like he's saying to me that if I save Jasmine, his girlfriend, then my own sins will be washed away. That's the test that he has given me. After this conversation, the party we are at takes a dark turn. It's hard to celebrate knowing what is at stake for Chino and Jasmine. I look around at this group of smugglers laughing and drinking. I think about the potential for violence that's always bubbling under the surface of this social landscape ready to explode. Chino leans into me and he whispers, there's a church in Palenque where I might be able to get some help. So we go. The windows are rolled down to let the hot jungle air pass through the car. The sun is beginning to disappear to the west. In the side mirror, I can see Jasmine's head leaning out the window, her dark, curly hair floating in the wind as she takes in the sights between Pacalna and the tourist trap known as Palenque. Signs advertising discount rates for hotels that have swimming pools and Wi-Fi. We look at hand-painted billboards with offers for private tours of the nearby archaeological site. We pass an immigration van with the weary faces of migrants peeking out at us through the vehicle's barred glass. I wonder, is it safer in that van or out here on the streets? I contemplate my options for helping Chino. Bring him to my house? Drive him to some other town and rent him a room? But where? How far is far enough to be safe? We drive endlessly through the narrow cobblestone streets of Palenque, looking for a place that will take in migrants. Chino is indecisive and doesn't want to get out of the car. We find a church that has a few homeless people lingering outside. They tell us the priest is not in right now, but come back later, and maybe he will let them stay. We pass Palenque's central plaza. Couples the same age as Jasmine and Chino embrace under brilliant white gazebos. Children devour melting ice cream and chase pigeons across the square. An out-of-tune brass band stumbles through a song from a distant decade. Chino nudges Jasmine and points as we drive past. I told you Palenque was beautiful, he says. Defeated, we start driving back to Pacalna, back to the train tracks and the fate that is waiting for these star-crossed lovers. And for the rest of my life, I'll wish that I'd gone in the opposite direction and never taken my foot off the gas.
Thank you for coming and for staying. This book follows 4 pastors, Ben, Johnny, Julie, and Rachel, and you'll hear Julie's name in the passage. Churches are messy places where people seek many things, among them a common understanding of something larger than they are, of God. This can be a beautiful, courageous endeavor that in its effort to do right usually goes wrong. Maybe churches need to die, to rid themselves of their old bodies, their advanced pathologies, to make themselves new again, to be free of the weight of a past none can carry. This cycle is, after all, the foundational principle of the faith. The theologian Chesterton said, "Christianity has died many times and risen again, for it had a God who knew his way out of the grave." Yet the notion of a circle doesn't fully satisfy. Death and rebirth, the cyclical nature goes nowhere, doomed to repeat itself. This may be an honest assessment of the universe's affairs. However, it isn't very hopeful. In Rachel's spiral, in Julie's knobbed whelk, in Johnny's realization that leading circle and healing himself were 2 separate endeavors, in Ben's acceptance of erasure and return to being humbled by grieving strangers, in all these, there are hints of moving forward by breaking a circle, not repeating it. The 4 pastors humbled one another, or perhaps harrowed is the better word, risking one another's souls like fields and freeing them to grow. It's uncomfortable to accept our flaws, let alone have them pointed out to us, hearing how we hurt one another and ourselves by clinging to received ideas. In some ways, this is the work of an exegete, to examine a story or an experience for what it reveals, not only about the world or God, but also about ourselves and what in our embodied consciousness must grow or die. Dying is difficult, even when welcome. There's no controlling what our bodies say and do in their final, hideous, and terrifying paroxysms. It's a curious thing to be an observer of human beings in the midst of their great struggles, and it's easy to forget that as observers, we exist as humans alongside. My father died during Lent in 2023. As I was leaving the church at the end of my father's funeral, I glanced into the forest of mourners and was startled to catch sight of Julie in a black blouse and pants, more formal than anything I'd ever seen her wear. She cracked when I saw her, so did I. I hadn't imagined her visiting my world, and yet there she was, mourning the loss of a man she'd never met, as this, among so many other unseen acts of service, is what a pastor does. Thank you.
So my book is about the ways in which fat phobia is structural and systemic, but I was left with this question at the end of the book: how should we think about our bodies for all that? And this is my attempt to begin to answer that question. In 2022, Sports Illustrated featured Yumi Nu, the plus-size model, on the cover of its annual swimsuit issue. Nu, it should be noted, is a small, fat woman. The reactionary Canadian psychologist Jordan B. Peterson saw fit to tweet about it. "Sorry, not beautiful, and no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that," he opined. Plenty agreed, though the tweet drew a lot of heated criticism, leading Peterson to withdraw from social media for about 5 minutes. 1 month later, Peterson retweeted another image, the New York Post story about the woman named Sexiest Woman Alive by Maxim Hot 100, Paige Spiranak. The triptych featured the thin, white, blonde Spiranak posing in high heels and a bikini and displaying her cleavage in an open button-up shirt. "Okay, she might be beautiful," smiley face, tweeted Peterson hornily. Such attitudes and the practices they give rise to are, of course, distressingly common. And the way that Peterson gives voice to them is unwittingly revealing. Sorry, he offers twice, and of course he's not sorry. But the high-handed tone suggests a man rejecting something offered to him, meant for him personally. It's not just that it's not for him, it's for him, but not up to his definitive, exacting standards. When it comes to beauty, he is the arbiter, and his pleasure is the measure. And sadly, the world often agrees with him and grants such privileged men such false authority. At the end of the book, you may be wondering how I now feel about my body. What follows will not be, I'm afraid, a triumphant conclusion. In part, this is because my story is still very much still being written, and in part, it is because not in bodily self-love, but rather a shift in perspective in which I've found my freedom. The thought that has helped me most in navigating all of this is that my body is for me. Your body is for you. My body is not decoration. Your body is not decoration. Our bodies are our homes, as the slogan has it. It goes without saying that you can have a reaction to my body. That reaction may be positive or negative or neutral, and good, bad, objectionable, non-objectionable. Contrary to what Peterson and his ilk may have you believe, it is not authoritarian to recognize some attitudes towards others' bodies as rude, even obnoxious. You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm entitled to think you an asshole for having it, and doubly so for expressing it when nobody asked you. Of course, it's complicated. The ways I want to express myself bodily will inevitably be informed by the culture in which I live and by the complex confluence of social forces that structure how I'm perceived and received in the world. And I may want to do things with and to other bodies who may consent, indeed relish the prospect. But still, my body, for all that, is for me, and yours is for you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's my honor to be here on behalf of Salman Rushdie. At 11:15 on August 12, 2022, on a sunny Friday morning in upstate New York, I was attacked and almost killed by a young man with a knife just after I came out on stage at the amphitheater in Chautauqua, New York, to talk about the importance of keeping writers safe from harm. I was with Henry Rees, co-creator along with his wife Diane Samuels of the Pittsburgh City of Asylum project, which offers refuge to a number of writers whose safety is at risk in their own countries. This was the story Henry and I were at Chautauqua to tell. The creation in America of safe spaces for writers from elsewhere, and my involvement in that project's beginnings. It was scheduled as part of a week of events at the Chautauqua Institution titled More Than Shelter, Redefining the American Home. We never had that conversation. As I was about to discover, on that day, the amphitheater was not a safe space for me. I can still see the moment in slow motion. My eyes follow the running man as he leaps out of the audience and approaches me. I see each step of his headlong run. I watch myself coming to my feet and turning towards him. I continue to face him. I never turn my back on him. There are no injuries on my back. I raise my left hand in self-defense. He plunges the knife into it. After that, there are many blows to my neck, to my chest, to my eye, everywhere. I feel my legs give way, and I fall. Thursday, August 11th, had been my last innocent evening. What I didn't know was that my would-be killer was already present in the grounds of the Chautauqua institution. He had entered using a false ID. His fake name constructed out of the real names of well-known Shia Muslim extremists. He was there somewhere. He had been there for a couple of nights, wandering around, sleeping rough, checking out the site of his intended attack, making his plan, unnoticed by any surveillance camera or security guard. I could have run into him at any moment. I do not want to use his name in this account. My assailant, my would-be assassin, the asinine man who made assumptions about me and with whom I had a near-lethal assignation. I found myself thinking of him, perhaps forgivably, as an ass. However, for the purposes of this text, I will refer to him more decorously as the A. What I call him in the privacy of my home is my business. This A didn't bother to inform himself about the man he had decided to kill. By his own admission, he read barely 2 pages of my writing and watched a couple of YouTube videos of me, and that was all he needed. From this, we can deduce that whatever the attack was about, it wasn't about the satanic verses. I will try to understand what it was about in this book. Thank you.
Guadsi, Hopa, it's nice to be here. The canyons of Grandma Esther's homeland in New Mexico contain Pueblo healing plants alongside toxic waste. The village where she grew up, Powati in Laguna Pueblo, sits along the Grants Mineral Belt, where a Navajo man named Patricio was hired by the Anaconda Mining Company as a uranium scout in the 1940s. He discovered high-grade ore in 1950, after which a yellow cake mining boom took place in New Mexico that led to 60% of U.S. uranium being taken from the region. In 1952, Anaconda opened the Jack Pile Mine, 10 miles south of our family's village. There, 3 open-pit uranium mines, some of the largest in the world, remained operable until 1982. Yet when Grandma contracted cancer, no one talked about the possibility of environmental causes for her illness. No one mentioned the poison that bled into the mountain runoff, gathering in the groundwater of wells in the region, affecting Navajo, Hopi, and Laguna Pueblo people alike. No one noted how roads and houses were sometimes built with rock and ore from the mines, and no one brought up the atomic bomb that Grandma Esther saw tested when she was at Laguna in 1945. The story she told about her life leading up to the war and the atomic bomb went like this. She and Grandpa Ed, who was half Quetzan Yuma and half Shoshone Paiute, met at Indian boarding school in Phoenix. Soon after, they married, and the agreement between Grandma's people and the railroad led Grandpa to take a job at the Laguna Colony in Winslow, Arizona. By the late 1930s, hundreds of Laguna people were living there, in boxcars converted into housing. The job site was close to Laguna, and families from the colony could go home for holidays, feast days, and weekends. It was a happy time. Many of Grandma's relatives lived at the colony, and babies born there were affectionately called boxcar babies. My father wasn't due to be born until January 1942. But when Grandma Esther heard that Pearl Harbor had been attacked, she went into premature labor. Trying to stave off his arrival, she hurried home to the boxcar colony, where a medicine woman gave her brown-foot tea to stop the contractions. It looked like she might be in the clear. But in the following days, the Indian men in her railroad camp began pounding war drums. They polished rifles and put on war paint, and Grandpa Ed came home expressing a desire to enlist. Many natives across the United States had already signed up for the war, even before Pearl Harbor. But now the desire to fight had hit home, and her labor pains started again. If anyone understood the dangers of fascism and the fight between notions of racial superiority versus racial equality, it was Native Americans. My grandparents understood World War II as a life or death struggle for the very freedoms they had been hoping to attain for many generations: the right to local democracy, cultural independence, and Native religions. Thank you.
Thank you all once again. All right, final category. Finally, it is my pleasure to introduce the finalists for the 2024 National Book Award for Fiction. Pemi Aguda, Kaveh Akbar. You had to get that out. I understand that. I understand that. Percival Everett, Miranda July, and Hisham Matar. All right. Please, everyone, give Pemi a round of applause.
Hello. I'll be reading an excerpt from a short story called The Hollow. As the woman stowed her son in cupboards to save him from his father's cruelty, under beds, behind chairs, she wondered, what is a house but a large handbag with many hidden zippers and pockets? The woman who lived in the large handbag with many pockets made a plan. She sold Ashoebi in Balogo, saving all the profits, every tip. She sold ofada rice at church events, the sun darkening her skin, firewood smoke staining her lungs. She opened a bank account, hid the multiplying money from her husband, whose character grew weaker, and the power in his swings and words stronger. She bought land in a part of Lagos that wouldn't become popular for another 18 years, a part she had to access on foot because the closest bus stop was 20 minutes away. She hired an eager draftsman, and when it was time to build, she oversaw the project herself, breathing her fear into the foundation, sweating her resolve into the concrete walls. She rinsed herself at the site so her husband wouldn't smell new beginnings on her. Soon, no more, She chanted in her head every night he added a scar to her skin. Every night she added a terrified scream to her son's memory. When the last shingle was nailed to the roof, the woman put her son on her back and left, taking nothing else. That first night, they slept on the bare floor, burrowing into each other. A house is freedom. A house is an escape. This one sensed their dread, their relief, and stood vigilant, ready to protect. How can you know a house if you don't sleep in it? Some say that light is the success of any building, but what new angles might darkness reveal? The woman who lived in the house of freedom was found by her husband. On that lot so far away from everything, he climbed the gates, breaching the perimeter, cutting his shin, trailing blood across the compound. He broke a lock, nothing but death swelling in his chest, coating his throat. The house bristled defensively around the sleeping mother and son, inhaling and exhaling, and the man felt the draft on his neck, on the meat of his hand gripping the knife. He moved from room to room, hunting, but every turn took him back to where he began. The walls shifted and the floors wavered, and he was bewildered. Each door led to a hallway that led to a dead end, the sharp arches of glass twinkling at him, promising pain. Exhausted and dizzy, he leaned into a corner, seeking an anchor, protection, though from what he didn't know. He felt a loss of control. The house balked at his weight, at his entitlement to support. It closed in on him, deviating and rearranging itself until a hollow appeared, between walls, between floors, between walls, and there the intruder was folded in, trapped, never to hurt again. A house can be a prison too. Thank you.
I found my spouse. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the gift of your attention. It's a measure of time, which is your most irreplenishable resource, and I'm grateful for it sincerely. When asked about the difficulties of sculpture, Michelangelo said, "It is easy. You just chip away all the stone that isn't David. It's simple to cut things out of a life. You break up with a shitty partner, quit eating bread, delete the Twitter app. You cut it out, and the shape of what's actually killing you clarifies a little. The whole Abrahamic world invests itself in this promise. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't fuck or steal or kill, and you'll be a good person. 8 of the 10 commandments are about what thou shalt not. But you can live a whole life not doing any of that stuff and still avoid doing any good. That's the whole crisis, the rot at the root of everything. The belief that goodness is built on a constructed absence, not doing. That belief corrupts everything, has everyone with any power sitting on their hands. A rich man goes a whole day without killing a single unhoused person and so goes to sleep content in his goodness. In another world, he's buying crates of socks and Cliff Bars and tents, distributing them in city centers. But for him, abstinence reigns. I want to be the chisel, not the David. What can I make of being here? And what can I make of not? Normal people think of recovery as a kind of abstinence. They imagine us sitting around white-knuckled, sweating as we count our hours, trying desperately to distract ourselves enough to not relapse. This is because for normal people, drinking is an activity, like brushing their teeth or watching TV. They can reasonably imagine excising drinking like any other activity without collapsing their entire person. For a drunk, there's nothing but drink. There was nothing in my life that wasn't predicated on getting drunk, either getting fucked up itself or getting money to get fucked up by working or slinging this drug for that drug or that drug for cash. Getting sober means having to figure out how to spend 24 hours a day. It means building an entirely new personality, learning how to move your face, your fingers. It meant learning how to eat, how to speak among people, and walk, and fuck, and worse than any of that, learning how to just sit still. You're moving into a house the last tenants trashed. You spend all your time ripping up the piss carpet, filling in the holes in the wall, and you also somehow have to remember to feed yourself and make rent and not punch every person who talks to you in the face. There's no abstinence in it. There's no self-will. It's a chisel. It's surrender to the chisel. Of course you don't hope to come out a David. It's miracle enough to emerge still standing on 2 feet.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I really needed this kind of inspiration after the last couple of weeks. And we kind of need each other right now. If you don't remember a word I read, remember this. Hope is not a strategy. All right. Never had a situation felt so absurd, surreal, and ridiculous. And I had spent my life as a slave. There we were, 12 of us, marching down the main street that separated the free side of town from the slave side. 10 white men in blackface, 1 black man passing for white and painted black, and me, a light brown man painted black in such a way as to appear like a white man trying to pass for black. The storefronts, a bank and a store and such, all looked flat and without depth, like I could just kick them over. It occurred to me that there was no telling which side of the town was free and which was slave. Then I understood that it really didn't matter. We marched in step, then fell into a cakewalk stagger. Emmett belted out a song line, and the rest of us repeated it. Lawdy, Lawdy, slap that mule, slap that mule. Lawdy, Lawdy, slap that mule. Massa keep his corn in an old brown keg. Massa keep his corn in an old brown keg. Massa's chillins run to school, act the fool. Massa's chillins run to school, act the fool. Old Miss chase him with her wooden leg, old Miss chase her with her wooden leg. White people came out and lined the street, smiling and laughing and clapping. I made eye contact with a couple of people in the crowd, and the way they looked at me was different from any contact I had ever had with white people. They were open to me, but what I saw, looking into them, was hardly impressive. They sought to share this moment of mocking me, mocking darkies, laughing at the poor slaves with joyful, spirited clapping and stomping. I looked at one woman who might have been intrigued by me or taken with me, the entertainer. I saw the surface of her, merely the outer shell, and realized that she was mere surface all the way to her core. The auditorium was part of the town hall. In fact, it appeared very much like a courtroom. I had once been in one, as I had been sent to deliver lunch to Judge Thatcher. We marched and sang our way into the stage and belted out songs. As Emmett, Cassidy, and even Norman had stated, I learned the songs quite quickly, at least enough to sing them on the choruses. It was actually painful to watch those white faces laughing at me, laughing at us. But again, I was fooling them. Thank you.
Let's see, I guess you just need to know it's, she's walking. It was 2 a.m. I'd left the known world and hadn't died. In fact, I felt fantastic. Was this the secret to everything? This bodily freedom? It felt intuitive and healthy, as if promiscuity was my birthright as a woman. Maybe it was. Was this the skeleton in civilization's closet? The reason why men had come down so hard on us since the start of time? I had the urge to call my mom and tell her the good news, but no, it was too late in every way. The moon, so huge. It suddenly seemed natural and sweet to fuck all my friends, but also my lawyer, who I couldn't remember the face of because we only communicated through email, and everyone else I worked with, regardless as if they were someone's assistant or the head of a company. What better way to understand other people's realities? I should have sex with both my parents, of course. It was only a matter of time. And obviously my cousins, wherever they were, should all be fucked. I lamented the relatives who had already died before we could share this tenderness. Children weren't part of this, but the parents of Sam's friends should be brought in, especially the mothers I had nothing in common with. Fisting would cut right through the politesse. And who else? Like God making a new civilization, I tried not to leave anyone out. 45 minutes later, I was still walking. I no longer wanted to fuck everyone in the world. That was lunacy. Now I wanted to eat the world like a giant fruit. I wanted to go to other countries, yes, but also how come when I dropped Sam off at school, I always hurried home, even when there was no urgency? What was keeping me from taking a different exit? Why didn't I throw themed parties or run an artist salon? I should have a lover, sure, but also other specialized relationships. Someone who I only cried with. Someone for mutual back scratching, artistic pilgrimages. I could be the part-time child or pet of a lonely adult. How interesting for both of us. And each of these people could be anyone from any walk of life. I had always done this kind of thing, but in secrecy, Davy, or in my work, harmless make-believe, or while belittling myself, what a kook, when really this was no trifling matter. A person with a journeying, experimental soul should be living a life that allowed for it. The past wasn't my fault. Of course, I'd been using prefab structures, not knowing any better, but now I was older and could see my new path clearly, extending from tonight and ending when I died. I get it, I whispered into the darkness, and thank you, I added, because we hadn't talked in a while.
Hello, good evening. It is, of course, impossible to be certain of what is contained in anyone's chest, least of all one's own or those we know well, perhaps especially those we know best. But as I stand here on the upper level of King's Cross Station, from where I can monitor my old friend Hussam Zua walking across the concourse, I feel I'm seeing right into him, perceiving him more accurately than ever before, as though all along, during the 2 decades that we have known one another, our friendship has been a study, and now, ironically, just after we have bid one another farewell, his portrait is finally coming into view. And perhaps this is the natural way of things, that when a friendship comes to an inexplicable end, or wanes, or simply dissolves into nothing, the change we experience at that moment seems inevitable, a destiny that was all along approaching, like someone walking towards us from a great distance, recognizable only when it is too late to turn away. No one has ever been a nearer neighbor to my heart. I'm convinced as I watch him go to his train for Paris, that city where the two of us first met so long ago and in the most unlikely way, that he is carrying, right where the rib cages meet, an invisible burden, one, I believe, I can see from this distance. When he still lived here in London, hardly a week would pass without us taking a walk either through the park or along the river. We sometimes got into a debate, usually concerning an obscure literary question. Arguments that, perhaps like all arguments, conceal deeper disagreements. I would sometimes, to my regret, for the gesture has always displeased me, tap my forefinger on his chest and let my palm rest there for a fleeting moment, as though to keep whatever it was that I believed I had placed there stable. And I would once again take note of the distinct pattern of his ribs, the strange way his bones protruded, as if in constant expectation of an attack. He does not know that I am still here. He thinks I have left, rushed off to the dinner engagement I told him I was already late for. I'm not sure why I lied. Who are you eating with? He asked. No one you know, I said. He looked at me then as if we had already parted ways and the present was the past. I standing at the shore and he on board the ship sailing into the future. Thank you.
Wow, one more round of applause for all of our fantastic finalists. What a tremendous, tremendous gift you all have given us this evening. Thank you so much. And another thanks to our special guests, Kieran and Jeff, our fabulous ASL interpreters, Avery and Jose, Really Useful Media, and NYU Skirball. A friendly final reminder that all of these incredible books are available for sale in the lobby until 10 p.m., like another 43 minutes, just to put a little finer point on it. With thanks again to McNally Jackson Books. One more huge thank you to the National Book Foundation and to the NYU Creative Writing Program for making this evening possible, and to our wonderful audience, all of you out there. And also to all of you tuning in online, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.